Hello, everyone, and welcome to Campoye. Well, I think you've already been on Campoye, but today we are talking to Manon Steffan Ros, who is the author of the Carnegie winning, I can now
Oh,
say, the Blue Book of Nebo. Woohoo! Hi, Manon, how are you?
I'm really good. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, it's really fun to get to chat to you about this book. Um, Before anybody who doesn't know you and doesn't know the Blue Book of Nebo, can you give us kind of like your elevator pitch about the book and about yourself? Because why not?
Okay, so I'm Manon. I live in the in Mid Wales on the coast with my family, and the Blue Book of Nebo is a post-nuclear dystopia book about basically about a mother and son, and they're the only survivors after some kind of unnamed nuclear disaster. And that sounds terribly depressing, but I think it's a book about hope as well as all this
I wouldn't say
horrible
it's
nuclear stuff.
depressing. I mean, the setup may sound quite bleak, but I find that you kind of really infuse it with hope, which is really, really nice.
That
And
was the hope, yeah.
yeah, you do. Come on,
Hope was the hope.
don't lose the hope now. And you wrote this originally in Welsh and then adapted it into English yourself. How was that
Yeah.
process? How did that feel? Because it was really successful in Welsh.
Yeah, I might have been a writer through the medium of Welsh language, which is my first language. Um, I've been a writer for about 17, 18 years now, writing through the medium of Welsh, doing a little bit of translation of my own work, but not much at all. And then this book came out, and I really enjoyed the process of translation because I've got two languages. It's like playing with two different toys, you know? And so after it came out, I started translating it just because I enjoy the process of it, and I just wanted to spend a little bit more time with the book. And so I wasn't really expecting it to be published in English or in any other language, but yeah, that happened, and that was really exciting. But the process of translation with this one was really interesting because it's a novel written in the first person by two narrators, and naturally to me these characters would be writing and speaking in Welsh. So I had to think about, why are they writing this in English? And it kind of created a new thread within the novel about how we feel about our languages, especially if the first language that you have is minoritized. How you're a different person and all the different languages you speak. And I was able to kind of look at that, peer at that in a bit more depth in the English version.
Mhm. Also, interestingly enough, well, to me anyway, because so this version, which is the Carnegie and I'll say this like a million times here. I'm just
That's fine by me. I think I haven't been
so
saying it over and over again to everyone I'm meeting. Hi.
hi, I'm Carnegie Medal and Manon Steffan
Yes,
Ros.
I'm thinking of changing my name to Manon Steffan Carnegie. That would be.
But Firefly published it as a YA novel, whereas in I think is it the States that is published as literary fiction, basically. So
Yeah.
how does that kind of sit with how you initially wrote it, and what was kind of the intention? Was it meant to be for teens?
Yeah, this is an interesting one for me because I wrote this as a YA book in Welsh, but I was advised that, you know, it felt like a book for everybody, so that I shouldn't sort of box it in that way. So it was published as an adult novel in Welsh, and then it's been translated into quite a few languages, and some of them publish as it is YA, some of them publish it as a novel for adults. And I don't know, I love YA, and most of what I read is YA. It's what I love writing as well. But also, I think that young adults are adults. And so basically, I think that more adults should be reading YA than they are,
You're
because it's
probably
such an
at a festival
interesting
that
genre.
thinks that too.
But I just think that the themes and the as a writer, I feel a bit more free writing for young adults, because I feel that that version of myself, you know, I'm 40 now, but I feel like the 17-year-old version of Manon was probably the truest, most authentic version of me. And, you know, when you get older, your edges start to fray a little bit, and your character smooths out, and you're absolutely you when you're that age. And so I love writing for that age range. Yeah.
So when it comes to the actual book, I mean, it's quite a short read, and it's quite succinct, but I do feel like that kind of succinct writing style really fits with the characters as well as your writing style. How did you kind of go about making sure that Dylan and Rowena had like their own voices in this book?
Well, I never plan anything. I'm really, really bad at planning anything. So when I started writing, I didn't really know that I was going to do this dual narration thing. I didn't know what was going to happen in the end. I didn't know that Mona was going to exist at all.
Really?
And I just sort of, that's what I enjoy most, is to just put my pen to paper and see where it goes. I kind of have to know the characters quite well before I start writing anything. But once I know the characters, I don't plot anything at all. So it wasn't a decision I made. It was more just trusting the characters more than I trust myself as writer. Oh, I know that sounds pretentious, but that is how I work.
Well, it could does come across, I think. It very much reads as, you know, we are reading the found notebook that the two of them have written in. Um, so I know I've mentioned it a couple of times already, but you just earlier last month won the Carnegie Medal for writing. Congratulations!
Thank you, deal.
How was that process? Because I know that you've done a lot of like shadowing events for the Carnegies. How did you find that? Was that like the
Oh,
best
it's
thing ever?
just a dream come true, because I used to, I've always been an avid reader, absolutely love books. And I would see this word Carnegie on the cover of my favorite books when I was younger. And I didn't really know what it meant. And then the fact that my book is on that list of amazing books is just mind blowing to me. And the fact that I've been able to meet so many young people, readers, through this process, it's just been pretty magical. And already there's so many opportunities that come from, not just winning it, but being longlisted, being shortlisted, being nominated in the first place. It's all those steps are a really huge, great honor. And realizing that there are so many people that love books behind this. So, I went to the award ceremony, and it was so lovely, just because everyone loves books, everyone loves reading. So all the chat was like, have you read this book? And it's suddenly like, oh my gosh, I found my people. I want to be best friends with everybody in this room.
Can I be here all the time?
Can we just stay all together?
Can you tell us a little bit about your journey towards becoming a writer? Because you've been writing for such a long time. Did it start as a child? Were you like writing furiously in notebooks?
No, not really. I read a lot as a child, and I think that's the best training, to be honest. I went to school and did my A levels and didn't do very well in my A levels. So I didn't go to university. I went straight into a job as an actor. And then quite soon afterwards, I became pregnant with my first child, who's very, very nearly an adult. And I'd lost my mum. She was really young when she died. She was 44, and she died quite quickly. And when I was pregnant with the first baby, I kept thinking about, the way that you go to an older relation's house, maybe when you're a child, and you see photos up of family members that have died before you were born. And when you think about that person, you think about that image, that still silent image. And I couldn't stand it. I couldn't stand thinking that my children would just see a picture when they thought about my mum. They wouldn't see how wonderful she was. And I thought, well, the best way I know to introduce them when they're a bit older and they understand a little bit more is to write her. So I wrote a fantasy middle grade novel, and the main character is Shan. She's 14. She's funny. She's feisty. and she's kind, and she's my mum. And so that it started from that place of just wanting to, I guess, introduce her and make her real for my own kids. And there's a little bit of that still in everything I've written, I think, because I started from that point of view. I think there's a little bit of grief and a lot of love, hopefully, in the things I write.
I think that kind of sums it up quite well, especially when it comes to Nebo, is that there is grief and there is sadness, and you're not shying away from a lot of things that I think some writers wouldn't write about, but it's done in such a like loving way and in such a kind of, I wouldn't say careful, because you're not a careful writer, because it loses its edge that way, but it's done in such a way that has care behind it, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
And I think that's why
kind.
this works so well for teens and for young adults, because of that kind of care. Are there anything, ugh, we're gonna cut this bit out, obviously.
Have to keep it in.
Okay, we'll keep it in, fine.
Cool.
What are you writing? What are you writing? What are you reading at the moment? Is there anything in particular that, so for anybody who's loved and read the Blue Book of Nebo, what other things would you recommend? Or, you know, what are you reading? What are you loving? Please do tell us.
Okay, well, I tend to, if I'm writing something creative myself, I tend to read factual books around what I'm writing. So I'm reading for the second time a book called The Hidden Life of Trees by Peter Wolben, I think it's pronounced. It's absolutely wonderful. All should read it. Obviously it's a book for adults, but yeah, you're all adults anyway. So and I think if people have read and enjoyed the Blue Book of Nebo, I can't say that I was I came to John Wyndham, the author John Wyndham, quite late in life, but he was definitely one of the main influences on the Blue Book of Nebo, because he's written books like The Day of the Triffids. They're sci-fi books, and sci-fi, I love sci-fi, okay, but it does tend to be the big picture all the time. You can get little tiny stories, but it's always the big picture and this big, scary, odd stuff happening. But with John Wyndham, he focuses on the characters within this sci-fi world, and because of that, there's a magic there. I think Day of the Triffids is just fantastic. Read that book.
Oh, that sounds lovely. Well, we're gonna have to all check it out. You already mentioned that you've already written some other bits. What are you currently working on? Is there anything that you can tell us about? Is there anything that,
it's
any other work that you're doing?
I've got 2 middle grade books out in translation again. I think next year and the year afterwards. And I'm trying to work on something brand new, and I'm really, really, really struggling with it. And so, I think it's important to talk about. Yeah, this is the reality of it. I'm trying to write something originally in English, which I've never done before, or I haven't done for a very, very long time. I haven't done anything long form, and it's not clicking. And I know what the story is I want to tell, but I think I've done too much planning in my head. And so instead of just letting it be what it wants to be, I'm being a bit too controlling. So I'm going to have to strip all that back and, just put pen on paper and not think about it as much as I've been doing. So yeah, it's not always easy to actually start, but once I've started, it should be fine. Yeah.
What was we will everything always. What was the kind of the best writing advice you've ever been given by someone? Or are you just very much of a, I'm just doing my own thing?
I think don't overthink it. And I think that we think about, well, yeah, I think we think about, when you get people's bucket lists and it says writing a novel on it, and people always think that writing a novel is this massive, huge task that's going to change your life, and it's like running a marathon. And honestly, to me, it's a real pleasure. I absolutely love what I do. I just really, really enjoy it every single day. And I'm so lucky to be able to say that. And it's not painful. I don't, it's difficult when I am where I am now and I'm not getting it right and I can't start properly. But actually, it's not a struggle. It shouldn't be that. You're allowed to enjoy it. It doesn't have to be this big pretentious arty, it doesn't have to be that. It can
I mean,
be,
we love a
you can
faint
write,
account.
yes, you can put loads of painting in, but it can be something that you do for joy, and I think we forget that so often, is the joy of it.
Mhm.
I
Do you
really
think
enjoy it.
do you think doing it professionally, like writing professionally, has a hand in that? Into like the kind of pressure and
um
the kind of um like how has that been for you becoming a professional writer? Because I feel
well,
like the landscape in Wales is quite different from the rest of the country.
oh, definitely. And that's a great privilege, because I was raised through the medium of Welsh. I speak Welsh to my kids, all my family, and having Welsh and English has been, it's offered me so many opportunities that I wouldn't have had otherwise. Um, I think the thing with being professional is that you put a lot of pressure on yourself, because you have to pay the bills, basically. But also, I think that because I haven't been to uni, and I'm not advising anyone to take the same, to do it the same way as I've done it, because I fell into it and wasn't a plan at all. But because I haven't been to university, I'm not qualified to do anything at all. And when I started doing this professionally, I thought, this has to work. You have to do it, because otherwise you might end up doing something you really don't enjoy. But I'm quite glad that I don't have an alternative, because maybe if I was, when things were difficult, and at times when I don't have a lot of confidence, which happens quite often, I might just say, well, I've done that now and I'll go and do something else. But I don't have that safety net, which I'm really, really glad of now.
See, I find that a really interesting thing because there's so many people that kind of say the other way around, that say, well, I need the safety net because otherwise I feel like I couldn't take certain risks in my writing and this and that. But it's really interesting to see you say that that is exactly why you're taking the risks and why you're writing in the way that
Well,
you.
yeah, I wouldn't advise it, because I mean, I've been really lucky and things have, thus far, touch wood, have really worked well for me. And I'm working, I am able somehow to make a living out of writing. But I know that there's a lot of luck involved in that. So yeah, it's not advisable really, but I do feel that there have been a lot of kind of coincidences,
Mhm,
one of them being my lack of qualifications, that have
mhm.
made this situation as it is.
All right. I think that is, we're kind of running out of time a little bit. So before we kind of say goodbye. Well, not goodbye. I'm flustered now, okay? I'm like, I have a safety net. What's this problem? um, is there a book that you wish you'd written? Just
Oh
kind of close off.
gosh,
I mean,
that's an amazing
most
question.
I feel like
Yeah.
most people have like millions, but is there like one book that you're like, oh,
Yes.
if that could have been mine? Oh,
Do you know, no one's ever asked me that before, and you didn't tell me beforehand that you were going to ask this question, but unexpectedly, there's a book that's come into my head, and awful, I can't remember the name of the author, but if you Google it, you'll get it. And it's a book called Stig of the Dump. Have you
oh,
heard of Stig of the Dump?
I think I have. Wait. Luckily, we are recording this
Oh
because
yes,
our
so we can.
computers.
Woohoo.
I'm gonna Clive King. It says.
Clive King, that's it. So it's a book that we had a wonderful year 5 and 6 teacher at school, Gwenno Jones, and she used to read to us from 3 o'clock to 3:30 every afternoon. And one of the books she read was Stig of the Dump, and it's about this boy who goes on holiday, I think with his grandparents, or it could be with an aunt and uncle or something, and he goes to the dump, and there's this boy man creature living in the dump, and it's just lovely. It's such a lovely book, and it stayed with me, 30 years now. So yeah, I'd love to have written Stick of the Dump. You got that first.
Oh well, but instead you wrote this one.
Yeah.
I mean, swings and roundabouts. Thank you so much, Manon, for being here with us today. We are so excited that you're part of our program, and we want to wish you. We want to wish you the best of luck. I'm just getting it. I'm just like all flustered. That's it. But thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here for Camp YA, and hopefully we'll see you really soon.
Bye.